Hi, y'all. Welcome to the TVA. just, just kidding. It is us. We are back. It is So Here's What Happened. And thank y'all for coming back for another episode of Craziness with me and Carolyn. I hope that sound was not too triggering for anybody who has seen the latest episode of Loki. Well, the latest and the last episode of Loki for this season. But as you can guess from my impression, we are talking about Loki today.
Yay!
So let's get into it.
Let's go.
But
Let's go.
but before I do that, oh yeah, for new people, I'm LaNeysha. And as always, I'm joined by
Carolyn.
yes, and we are here for, to talk about all things that we love to watch and read. But this time we decided to do a special episode to talk about Loki.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, so Loki is the second MCU show for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the first, as we previously discussed, is WandaVision. And with
Mm-hmm.
this one, I think this started off really good, but to me, it kind of got a little bit convoluted around episode 3, and then episode 6 was kind of like I saw people like I avoid these spoilers, but
Mm-hmm.
I saw people mention some things and it kind of did go where I expected it to go, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do in the way that I expected. And I'll get into that. But
Mm-hmm.
Loki is, as we know, starred by the sexy, suave, debonair Tom Hiddleston,
Yes.
playing Loki himself, the god of mischief. Don't mind he doesn't really get into much mischief in this series or in the MCU in general. And then his co-stars are Owen Wilson, who played Mobius, Gugu Mbatha, who played Ravonna, and Wunmi Mosaku, who played Hunter B-15. And then we had a new character introduced to the MCU, and that is Sylvie, played by Sophia DiMartino. And so she is basically a variant of Loki. So like if you're not familiar with this series, hopefully you
Mm-hmm.
are, because we're going full on into spoilers with this, is that there's multiple timelines, infinite timelines, and in each of these timelines, there's a variant of each and every single person. So Loki has multiple variants from in all these different timelines, and so Sylvie is one, and she
Right.
is the variation of him. And her character is kind of interesting because she's supposed to provide a mirror for Loki, like for him to finally get some self reflection. But I actually think she didn't do that. I actually think the character of Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, is the one that actually did that.
Mm.
And before we get into all that, so we'll do what we normally do, which is we'll discuss the cons first, and then we'll go into the pros because we like to end on a positive note.
Yes.
And so we'll start with Nisha. So Nisha will tell us what her cons are for the show first.
My cons. So I don't have too many like big, I'll say like things that I did not like about it. Like, things that I found like troublesome. Because I do think for the most part, I think it does a great job of introducing the next phase. Loki does a great job of introducing the next phase of the MCU as we're heading into the multiverse. I think excellently because I mean, I know we touched on, I think people have talked about Nexus events and touched on Nexus beings and like with Scarlet Witch and all these other things. So it's kind of like now we're finally getting to like Loki is stepping in and basically busting down the door and be like, okay, the multiverse exists.
Mm.
And now we just have to like be thrust upon all of these things. So like with my cons for it, I did feel like the first few episodes, not even the first few, I would say the first two episodes, I thought like this feels a little slow. But I think obviously I feel like it's deliberate because it's trying to give you a setup for something that it's not. Because when we're given the show as a premise, you kind of think that, okay, it's going to be about Loki hunting down this imposter Loki, and he's going to, do this in order to get free, or he's going to get up to his old tricks again and all these other things, and then it kind of like just changes it. So I will say, while the first episode made, I would say for more so the first episode felt like it was slow at first, I still enjoyed it. That was just like my whole thing. I'm like, okay, it's building upon itself. Not to say that I wanted to feel rushed, but other things, because it didn't do. I guess this isn't a con. This was a concern I had, and I'm glad it didn't do that. I was concerned that B15, Womi's character, I was very concerned about her just not like having any agency and not having a voice. Honestly, I was concerned about a lot of the black women.
I thought she was good.
Um, I thought same. I thought it was just gonna be like, oh, representation, and then it goes nowhere. And again, it's not like I would say her role in like having these black women at, we have the judge Ravona and we have B15, and I'm like, ooh, it's dope to see, like we get two black women characters, and this is cool because like usually I'm like only seeing one of you exist in the MCU at all.
Mhm.
Besides, unless we're in Luke Cage neighborhood. But my point being, it was kind of a big concern for me of what they were going to do with those characters. So I think that's, as the series went on, my concerns were met.
Yeah,
But
I had kind of the same concerns. It did start a little slow. The first episode I think was needed because this is a
yeah.
complete new world. Like the TV is a complete new world for
Mm-hmm.
people not familiar with it from the comics, or even if you are familiar, like the way they just brought it to life is like completely different. The aesthetics,
Mm-hmm.
the cinematography, the direction style of it is totally
Right.
different to what was done with WandaVision. So I think they needed to take time to like actually give us exposition this time. This is where exposition was necessary to explain the timelines of the Nexus events and who the Time Lords were,
Yeah.
and Mobius and B15 and Ravonna. So we got an idea of who these characters were. And we
Mm-hmm.
see that now because spoiler, we're gonna get a season two. So we needed this introduction to these characters because then they don't have to go through all of that for the rest of the season and then going into season two. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of like that they took the time to explain it, and and that it kind of does, and then ironically episode 6 kind of does the same thing, but that kind of makes it a con where we had so much exposition it was kind of hard to understand what was being said, like because kind of Conqueror played by
Well, in this one, he's not exactly Kang.
he's
He's
not Kang, he's a variant
he's a
played by John.
variant, right? He Nathaniel. I guess like because I was talking about
He's
this with Sim.
Nathaniel, right? He's one of his
Yeah.
offspring. He's one of his offspring.
Well,
Right, by Jonathan Major. So Nathaniel is, because I was looking at the
mhm.
because I have it here, like I was looking at the MCU thing. So he's considered a descendant of Kang, but he's still an alternate version.
Well, act, he's a descendant of Sue. So
Is it what?
it's a little confusing, but it makes sense. So Nathaniel is in the 31st century. He's the descendant of Sue Storm and Reed Richards.
Yes,
Nathaniel is a variant of Kang. So
yes,
so you have Nathaniel and all of his variant selves, and
yes.
like we can get down to that a little bit further down the line, but
Mm,
going back to like the cons real quick. I did want to mention one because someone brought it up, but like, and I say this no, and making it very clearly, I know some people had mentioned about like, I guess this is my one issue with Marvel as a whole when we talk about representation, when they do like these little things
mm.
but they don't really go anywhere with them. So remember like in Endgame where there was that guy um who was at the support group with Steve, and they were like, yeah, and I met a guy
Oh
and
yeah, it's
we have
supposed
a
to be the gay
date.
characters.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he was the gay character representation. And then it's like now we did Loki, and then like when Sylvie asked Loki about like if there was somebody for him, and like if there was like like who he had, and he's just like, yeah, a bit of both, because she said, was it princesses and princes, and he said a bit of both. So it's like there was a confirmation that Loki is bi.
Mm.
So my only problem with Disney, not Disney, well, Disney does the same thing.
It's Disney.
Marvel,
Marvel is Disney.
both of them, but yes, Disney. So we'll hear all this buzz in these articles, and they'll say like the MCU has confirmed its first LGBTQ plus character, and
Mm.
I'm just like, that's great, but y'all keep saying that y'all have confirmed this, but then it's like you don't go nowhere with it. And I mean, who knows if it were to go somewhere else with it? I think it wasn't like it didn't come up to me until I was talking about the show with someone else who is bi, and they're like, "No, it's really cool that they addressed it, but it is kind of annoying when you keep having like, those articles and the clickbait because it's just like it's just a slight mention, but
Yeah.
like, are you going to do anything else with it?" It's kind of like I was also having this conversation with somebody. It's kind of like not to go down a hole, but you know how they're making the Powerpuff Girls reboot, not even reboot, a live action. I know. They
So
made
unnecessary.
they made Buttercup black, right? Or at least what we're supposed to assume is black, but or she's biracial or she's mixed. Anywho, she's a person of color. It's like when we see that done in shows, but like the representation doesn't go anywhere beyond that. What
Because
was the
that's all
point?
they think that that's enough, and that's going into one of my other cons. And so
Yeah.
we have variant Loki. So we
Mhm.
have a white woman, and we have two white men, or it's
Mhm.
actually three. There's a literal duplicate of Loki. Then
Yeah.
there's one played by Richard E. Grant. Then there's one played by a young guy, and then there's a black man.
Mhm.
Couldn't one of those three white men? Couldn't one have been Asian? Couldn't one have been Southeast Asian? Couldn't one have, you know what I mean? Like,
I was asking the question in my head too. I'm like, I don't know anything about boastful Loki. Like, I know nothing. Absolutely
to
nothing.
me, boastful Loki is who
Um,
Loki was when he first entered the MCU. That Loki is exactly that. The way Tom Hiddleston played him is
uh-huh.
exactly how he was when we first got to know him in the MCU. The arrogant jerk, like, who, like, I'm
Mhm.
filled with glorious purpose. That's
Right.
literally who boastful
Well,
Loki
I
is.
mean, they all kind of to a certain extent, the variants have
They
like
have to be because they
certain
are Loki.
they right, they're the same person, but like it seems like they all share like similar traits or they all
Yeah,
have the same exact traits. And it's kind
yeah.
of like I would love for somebody to tell me, just explain to me like why was boastful Loki black? I just want to know. I just want to know because I have a question about like, was there a boastful Loki in the comics? Has that been done before? Because I just don't know. I'm just very confused. But I mean,
I think
the
they're all
kid.
supposed to be different characteristics of a person. Like boastful Loki is the boastful side of Loki. Then there was Richard E. Grant, who's the more mature version of him from who's a future Loki, and he's more mature because he's learned with age and with time. Like who he was as a younger person didn't coalesce with who he was as an older person. Then there's the younger Loki, who he
Hmm.
would have been when he had that angst and that jealousy of Thor. Because remember, he said the reason he ended up but the reason he got purged is because he killed Thor. So that's the
Yeah.
Nexus event that he created. So that was who Loki, that the Loki that we know now. That's who he was when he was younger, like always out to get Thor, and he was
Well,
jealous of Thor. So that's kind of how I saw it. But as you said, like, why did
right.
the black man?
Well, I guess it's just like one of those things where it's like they kind of explained that like how variants work of like there could be a scroll Loki.
Yeah.
There could be a Loki. There's an infinite multiverse.
Mm.
So I guess we just have to accept that like as Mobius was explaining, variants can have they don't always look exactly alike.
Yeah.
They can look similar to, them exactly. They might have a
They're
completely
literally variations. So a variation,
right.
like when you talk about biology, a variation of something is that's when you're talking about genetics and adaptation versus evolution and that kind of stuff. So like a variation of something isn't an exact copy. Like I'm wearing a dress, I'm wearing a variation of a dress. It
Right.
doesn't look like every other dress, but it's still technically a dress, right?
Right. It's still Loki.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's like what is on the inside or like what does it make what makes a Loki? Like
exactly.
that kind of thing. So, and it's kind of that was interesting. I mean, I did like the nod to like President Loki because I know that's in the
Mhm.
comics and like that was interesting and Kid Loki in the comics. The old Loki I think was also a reference to the original wasn't there an original Avengers film that Loki was in, or was it a TV show with Thor or something? I had just assumed that maybe that's where that Loki was like also referencing to.
Possibly.
I mean, or like it could just be referencing to the classic Loki costume in the comics. So
Yeah.
like the very very classic version, like the first iteration of them. So it was just like interesting, but like I that's why for me I was like for the life of me I was just like where does boastful Loki come from? But at the same time, I guess not everything has to have its roots in a
Yeah. And
comic reference. Maybe they just thought it would be funny of like, let's cat let's have boastful Loki be a black man.
mm. Yeah, but like I said, like
But
I'm like, if you're doing all of these variations, this is the time where you could have like a really good time for them also to insert other ethnicities. Other side, like he could have been Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern,
I mean, I definitely
South
wanted to see more
South
Lokis.
Asian.
I definitely wanted to see more of that, like in that whole exchange, because we only see four of them, and like if we take away our Loki, so I honestly wanted to see like, I wanted to see like maybe a full out brawl with like,
I thought it was gonna be like a dozen Lokis or something, because that's what was gonna happen. I didn't expect like
hmm
the other, because the other Loki that came out in the green suit and stuff, he's the one that's like the Loki that we knew before. Like the other men that the other people that he was influencing weren't Lokis, which is what I was expecting. It was figuring that they would be sent to a place filled with their own cells, right? So it was like, oh, there's not just Loki, so there's other people.
yeah, it's everywhere. Anyone who's been pruned goes there, but Lokis have been pruned the most.
Yeah, because there's even a ship that looked like a World War II ship from like, yeah, from War American.
The
Um,
Avengers Tower was there.
yeah,
There was a
the
lot of
cruise
things
ship,
there.
a cruise ship was there, and
hmm
everything. So the fact that the Avengers Tower is there is saying that Avengers was purged, so then they're saying that anything that was destroyed when Thanos snapped was sent there.
Well, not exactly in the timeline. So that doesn't have anything to. I don't think the
But then
ones
it
that we
makes you
saw
wonder what could
there.
have caused the Avenger Tower, the entire tower.
It's just so when they do pruned, like when they reset the
Yeah, the
timeline,
entire world.
yeah. So if there was a Loki who won in that situation,
Yeah,
then they would have reset the timeline, and though like those little time bombs or whatever that they set off, they send them there. So
yeah.
to our knowledge, our Loki is from the timeline where Thanos existed.
Hmm.
And like, I mean, other Lokis also mentioned Thanos too. But like for like the art, the whole in game, everything that we saw, that timeline went down as we saw it in Endgame.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there from that timeline in relate besides that Loki.
Yeah, because there wasn't a Nexus event that occurred, because
hmm
Loki was taken before he caused the Nexus event, which was what would have been when he took the Tesseract. If he had used the Tesseract, that would have created the Nexus event, but they stopped him before he used the Tesseract, so therefore that timeline is still continuing.
Right.
Which is where the ending of episode 6 ties in, because now they got all of these multiple timelines, and it looks like some of them are converging, because there's no way you can have all of these things branch off and none of them don't converge.
Oh no, they're going to converge.
They're gonna converge, and then that's gonna be like a headache. Like
It's a
my
mess.
sympathies to the VFX teams. Like forget the directors and the writers. My sympathies to the VFX teams, because you guys got a job ahead of you. Woo!
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, at the end of the day, so kind of going on from, were there any other cons for you?
So my other comment was like I was saying, like the thing is, as I liked how they did the exposition in episode 1 and 2 to kind of get us
hmm
familiar with the TV and all of this stuff. I think they just did a bit too much, or maybe not too much. They didn't explain things to me very well with the dialogue that Jonathan Majors had, and it's not that he
hmm
delivered it bad, but I think his the dialogue didn't work for me in the fact that I was trying to figure out what he was explaining. Even though they give us like the little dioramas, which I thought was cute, they give us like a visual. They're like, yeah,
hmm
this is giving you guys a lot of information. We got to give you like a visual.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, if it wasn't for the
I
visual, I think
appreciate
I
it,
would have been lost.
which I appreciated. But then I still had to go and read up on it afterwards, which I guess as you would have to do with this whole thing to figure
hmm
out things. So I just, to me, the dialogue didn't necessarily work, and the
hmm
lighting, I could not see. It was like as episodes went on, the episodes got darker and darker and darker and
Yeah.
darker. And I don't mean aesthetically, and I don't mean thematically, people. I mean aesthetically. It's like they started flipping the lights off one by one as they went through the episodes. By the time you got to episode 6, almost pitch black. And I'm not even being hyperbolic. It was so dark I could barely see anything. And then it's the set lighting, then it's the
hmm
costumes, the set design, and then the VFX, because I gotta do color grading for CGI that works with CGI, so you can blend all these things together. But then it was just, I could barely see. And it was, I'm like, I need to see the action. It kind of reminded me of Ninja Assassins. Like, I like that movie, but it's so dark. In some scenes, it's like someone
Uh,
turn the light on. Like, give me a fancy ceiling fixture, a chandelier, something so I can see what is happening. And then the characters are wearing dark colored clothes too. Like Jonathan Majors is wearing this deep purple suit, deep purple
he
cape
looked
and
good in that
robe.
purple. He looked girl.
It looked good.
He looked good.
But then I could barely see anything. Why? I would like to be able to see what's going on the screen. You put all this effort in for CG and all these details for set design. Let us see it, please. Turn a light on, one or two. Turn things up a couple watts. Hmm?
A
Scott
couple
Twitch chat.
watts.
A couple watts. Just a few. And, just flip a kind of give me some ambient lighting, some little mood candles, some candelabras, or something so I can see what's happening.
Mm. I will say at least was not as bad as like Game of Thrones lighting, because
Yeah, someone
that
else
is
mentioned because
impossible. That is impossible for me to enjoy
yeah,
like without adjusting my screen.
yeah, because I tweeted it and someone didn't mention the Game of Thrones episode. Yeah, that one was like pitch black. Like all you see was like a couple candles flickering. Like the fight. That one was the fight. Woo, that was.
Yeah.
Woo, that one
So
caused a lot of drama on the TL. I remember that day. The
yeah,
director was all in his feelings. But
he
sir,
was.
on a couple lights.
So then going into pros.
I like that we got way more of Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Like personally, he is one of my, I would say, my top three characters in the MCU, and this is including films. So it would be Black Panther. Actually, no, I can't say top three. I say top five.
Mm-hmm.
Because I consider the Dormalaje like Okoye and Nakia as like two of my favorite characters. I would probably say top five. But I like Loki, and I like the reason I like Loki is because he started as an absolute jackass. Excuse my language. When we first meet him, he was coming there to rule Earth and say, "I'm gonna be a new dictator, like a king." Like, no, sir, we're not doing that. And he
Yeah.
was like all about wanting to be enslaving people, and I'm like, no. But then the way how Tom Hiddleston plays him, he plays him so effortlessly. Like he's one of those characters, those people where he was made for this role. This role is his. Like I couldn't picture anyone else playing Loki the way
Mm-hmm.
he is Loki. And he like you got to like him even when he was being a jerk, even when he was being a douchebag, you still liked him because you knew that there was something underneath him and there was a like people would say, "Oh, you love the damaged bad boy," and it's not necessarily he's a damaged bad boy. It's just that he was so misunderstood. He put himself in a pocket where he painted himself to be like, "This is how people see me, so then this is how I'm gonna behave."
Yeah.
And like we got glimpses of how much he loved his family, how much he loved Thor, how much he loved his father, and how much he loved his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And like Tom gave us these little glimpses of like empathy, and he'd be like sympathetic, and he would like listen to people. But then we got so much more of that in this season, especially I was saying the first for from episode 1 to episode 4. But episode 2 I think is my favorite because that's where we really saw the impact of what happened with his mother, where he learned what happened to his mom, and he was just like so devastated and so sad. And we got to see that Loki himself has always underestimated himself. He never thought he could be more than who he could, than more than he thought he could be, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that Morbius tells him. Morbius tells him is like, you are so much more than you think you are, Loki. Like don't put yourself in a corner. Like you
Right.
like Bay, he's like, here we I'm just already thinking about Dirty Dancing, where Johnny goes to be, he's like, nobody puts baby in a corner. Mobius is basically the same, but he's like, don't put yourself in a corner, Loki. You can be the best dancer.
No, I mean like I get and I do agree with a lot of that because I will say like Loki, the show, definitely made me love Loki more. Like after Thor Ragnarok, I had an appreciation for Loki
Yeah,
because we did see like how he grew and he had a connection to Thor finally, and it was genuine, and that he was really stepping out of this villain role that he felt that he was stuck in,
yeah,
or like not and just like that he was stepping into like I can be more then. So then like in this one it's kind of like damn, all that like the little development we had of Loki is gone because we're back here to square one with Avengers Loki. But it's like in my brain I always took it as like the good thing is this Loki has the potential to change. We do know that he has the potential to change in him, and we know that he actually does care. What I love that we did get was that we got understanding of a lot of motivations for why Loki does what he did for a lot of his life. He felt, obviously, for most of his life, he felt that like he did not have any other option but to be bad or to be a villain, or that he could not change and that he could not be more. And that like when your brother is Thor and everybody celebrates Thor all the time, he wanted attention, he wanted love. It's like I always love when Loki mentions his mother, because it's like, yeah, no, his mother definitely noticed that Loki felt neglected. And it's not like I feel like people have to understand it's like, yeah, imagine if you're Loki and your brother is literally the god of thunder, set to become king. So, and I'm not justifying anything. It just makes sense why Loki just never felt like he could ever amount to be more, that he could never amount to be the hero to get the glory that his brother got.
Yeah, and then don't forget
And
there's also his history of coming from the Ice Kingdom. I
exactly.
heard so he's like
Yeah.
I'm a prince of my people's enemy. So he has that whole identity crisis going on. It's
I
like
don't
nature versus nurture. So he's like by nature.
It's nature versus nurture. I mean, but
Yeah,
it's definitely that too, because like it's a big reason of like why he feels so betrayed and hurt by Odin when like and that's why he's so clouded by the hurt that he did not. It
Odin.
wasn't until Thor Ragnarok when Odin literally dies that he realizes like, oh, I missed. I'm like, my father is gone. He's dead. I loved my father.
Yeah.
Like, and I think Loki always loved his father. It's just that it's like the kid who acts out for attention.
Hmm.
Obviously that's what Loki did. He acts out for attention. And I think having him have the moments where he just said it himself, he's like, why do I lie? Why do I do these things? Why do I pull pranks? Why am I mischievous? And then like we kind of get that development and the answers to like the motivations behind it, because I don't Loki isn't necessarily a villain in the sense that he cannot change.
Right, that's the thing. He's not a sociopath. He's not a psychopath. He's not without feeling and without empathy. It's just that his actions were born more from the fact that he thought that this is who he should be. So therefore, he acted
Hmm.
according to people's expectations of him. And is
Right.
and that's one of the things about what makes Ragnarok so good. Like they give the development to Thor, but they also give the development to Loki and to their relationship too. Like Taika Waititi and the crew did and the writing team did such a great job
Hmm.
developing them and giving these characters more depth.
Yeah.
And then like the MCU tried to like erase all of that with the last films after that. But then the writers kind of like course corrected with this, and I'm so glad that we had this chance because he's a villain in the sense that when it comes down to it, sometimes he is quick to be like, you know what? See y'all guys later. You handle this mess. If you hear weird noises, it's my dog. My dog. She's in my bedroom.
No worries. No worries.
um,
But no, and I think that's the great thing, because I'm like, I don't we knew about the Loki series. I don't know exactly when. I can't remember if it was before Endgame was announced or if it was after Endgame was announced. But I think we all were just like, how are we going to have a Loki series? Loki's dead. And then it's like, oh, here's how we do it. And we saw it in Endgame. That's how we get Loki. But going into another pro, I have been saying since I watched this show, since the first episode, Loki is Dorothy, and this is the Wizard of
yeah.
Oz.
Mhm.
This is literally the Wizard of Oz. It's Loki has gone transported to this place, and he is just going on this journey of self-discovery. But it's just like, I loved all the, like, literally it got to the point when they just said the man behind the curtain. I'm like, so y'all are just really leaning into this,
Yeah,
just
Wizard
being,
of Oz. Yeah.
yeah, y'all were literally leaning into this being the Wizard of Oz, but for Marvel.
But didn't the I'm calling him Noble Loki, the one played by Richard he's classic Loki, sorry, played by
Hmm.
Richard E. Grant. Didn't like just before they got to fight they found Kang,
Hmm.
didn't he not put up a city that looks just like
The
the Emerald
Emerald
City
City,
of Oz?
Emerald
It looks
City,
the same way. And I
literally.
was like, wait a minute.
Like, and I'm not saying it's not that it's a pro. It's
It's
just
more
like
like an homage. I think it was probably an
it was
homage.
definitely a homage, and I thought it was cute because I was just like, oh, y'all are just leaning into this, and
Just love it.
I'm like, okay, let's go with it.
It's a good
Loki is Dorothy. But other things, oh, Sylvie, you know what? They gave us good female characters. I will
Mm.
say good in the sense that we have three main slash supporting female characters who have their own motivations that are not tied to to a man. And I say man specifically because that is sometimes the case. Even with Sylvie, I had to point this out to somebody. They're like, "Oh, she purged herself." And again, y'all been known this as spoilers. She purged herself to go find Loki. I'm like,
Oh,
no,
she went to get her
no,
revenge
because like even when she purged herself, she didn't do that
for him. She did it for
for
herself.
him.
She
She
wanted
did it for
revenge.
herself. And I will say, like, I think finding him was a bonus for her It was more of like, oh, I do care about this Loki and I do want to find him again. And we should go. Her entire focus this whole time has not deviated from finding the man or finding the answers that she seeked for this entire time.
Nothing she did was for him. It's just that he just happens his motivations happen to align with hers.
And then I will say she did grow to have some feelings towards him in return, but that did not cloud her judgment. And I gotta appreciate that a little bit just because I don't like when female characters' judgments get clouded by romance.
Yeah, we didn't
Like,
have any.
or
We didn't
motivations.
really get much of a romance. Like when
No.
people say, "Oh, he fell in love with himself," like meaning her. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was love. I think it was just the beginnings of affection. Like he's beginning to finally see
Right.
someone else in a new. Because we've never seen him have romantic feelings or inclinations towards anyone, and this is
Never.
the first time you see him have like the potential was there, but he didn't love her and she didn't love him. It was just like they said they were friends, and like even he said he's never had friends before.
Yeah.
And the closest he would have come to that would have been, yeah, his friend when he was with Thor, but then like his resentment and jealousy of Thor kind of gotten in the way of that because we had moments of the glimpses of their potential friendship in Ragnarok where we saw them being playful and helping out each other,
Mm-hmm.
but then, like again, the MCU kind of like just like push all of that to the back burner. So we needed this, and like the thing with Sylvie is like she's supposed to be like a mirror to him, like for him
Mm-hmm.
to like learn empathy. But as I said before, I think that was actually done through Mobius, like because
Mm.
Mobius from the very beginning is the first person apart from I would say Thor and maybe is there anyone? I wouldn't even say Tony, because like I think Mobius is the first person who's gone toe to toe with Loki in the fact that he like when Loki says something, he's able to give him like a retort right immediately right
I
after.
mean, Black
He's not afraid
Widow,
to tell him about himself.
that's about it. He has, like, when we're talking about people who have had an extended conversation with Loki and kind of gotten him like off guard or like, by surprise about something. There's the scene in the first Avengers movie where Black Widow is interrogating him and she's
And then
like,
oh, that turned out because he messed with her, and then we
well, no, he didn't. He figured out, she did figure out that his goal was to go after Banner. Like, that was the whole thing. And then
yeah, but she kind of figured it out a little bit too late, and she the
I
thing is
mean,
she
that was
thought
the
that she was
plan in the first place.
yeah she thought that she was manipulating him, but he was just playing her, and then because like Joss Whedon and that goddamn like talk about
Oh
you.
yeah, no, I'm not giving Joss Whedon any credit, but I will
I
say,
hate
like, at
that man.
least
I hate that. Woo.
when I'm thinking of characters that have conversed with Loki and,
Hmm.
like, I say at the closest ever gotten an aha moment
Hmm.
with Loki, it's Black Widow and Hulk because he literally smashed him to the ground
Yeah.
multiple times. But even then, that's brute force. But like
Exactly. That's not a
Mobius,
conversation.
right? But at the end of the day, I think it helps that, like, Loki being powerless and not being able to do anything, and you have to force him to listen is like a big benefit of why Mobius was able to do it. But as we go on, it really is that, like, Mobius's words like cut him deep.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Owen Wilson did a great job.
I think he did. Like they were perfect casting because he I think
Mm-hmm.
he goes against Loki perfectly. And it's also because like this is a role we haven't really seen him in before. Where we know
Mm-hmm.
he can do the thing with comedic actors like him is like he plays a lot of versions of himself
Yes.
in his different roles. And like this isn't any different. But the thing is like with this one, it works as a foil against Loki. So I think that was genius casting. Like whoever came thought Owen Wilson
Mm-hmm.
for this a genius because I think how he just acts naturally and then how
Yeah.
his play Mobius is a perfect foil for the way Tom Hiddleston plays Loki.
Yes.
And then the thing is he's also able to tell Loki about himself, but then also he didn't when Loki told him things because Loki's an extremely observant person too. Like when Loki does was like, okay, you're telling me, but I can tell you about yourself too. Like the thing with Mobius is that he doesn't get offended. He's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
cool. He's like, okay, well, if there's
It
way
rolls off of his back. It just rolls off of his back.
yeah,
He does care about people. Like,
mm,
Mobius does genuinely care about people. Like, when he goes to these timelines and he knows that he has to reset them or that people are going to die, he has a certain level of empathy that other people lack. Like,
yeah.
other people in the TVA just lack.
Mhm.
Like, and I would love to see what was Mobius before, you know, before he was taken there. Like, what did he do? I mean, and I guess kind of getting into like that, I, so like how we kind of talked about how the story kind of like expounds upon itself and like, grows as it goes on. The whole TVA and like basically it's like the cave narrative. Each episode gives us a. It's like the cave narrative theme or like way of storytelling is basically people start off in the cave, and the further you go through the cave is the more that you learn. So
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
so like that's the cave story narrative, and I feel like Loki is a great example of that because truthfully, every episode we have to accept what we're told is what we know for where they exist. We don't people you can make your guesses, you can assume, you can try to make assumptions, but like until things are revealed, you don't know. So it's like each episode builds upon itself to expound more. And the more we go forward, the more we get to know. So it's like finding out that everyone in the TVA is a variant. Like
yeah.
that for me, I was just like, what? So
But it makes
everybody,
sense though.
it makes perfect sense because where else would you get a workforce to like do all these things? And
But not only even that, but it just makes sense in the fact that if we're talking about parallel universes, obviously these people have to be variations of other people from other worlds. The thing is
right.
that they were kidnapped.
The thing
Which
about
is
them
very
being
different.
kidnapped, I think it's like because we're first told, and I say like the whole, it's the guy at the beginning who's like, what's a fish? I don't know what a fish is. I don't remember his name, but he's like, I was created here. We're
Yeah,
told that they were created here. So we just accepted that, oh yeah, they're created there. That's it. That explains it. And then it's revealed that like, oh no, it's worse. They're variants. And that makes it much darker and much more sinister for me. Cause I think like you said, like everybody's been kidnapped and their minds wiped and all their past lives are gone.
yeah.
And they're just placed here to do, to work and then continue to do the same thing over and over again to other people.
Yeah, now see the thing is about this show, like I don't know if I'm the only person getting it, but to me this show in a very subtle way talks a lot about faith and belief in religion. Like if you
Yeah.
because like if like me as a Christian, I've been watching this show and I'm just thinking this is kind of like how you question like okay God, like the
Mhm.
existence of God, where did God come from? So like you have the Time Lords, they're like in charge of maintaining
Mhm.
the timeline. They're in charge of all these people and all these things, and then like Loki was there questioning. He's like, where did they come from? And then they find out there's another being, but then they would have had to answer, okay, where did he come from? Then ultimately, you got to get to the point where who created all of these universes? And then
Yes.
just like as Christians, we think, like, I remember there was a point, there was literally a day where I said, we're because we were like having these various philosophical decisions. Anybody said, "Oh, so then we know God created all of these multiple worlds and these multiple universes, and because Earth is not the only universe, even in our own galaxy." And then
Mhm.
you're thinking, okay, but then who created God? And there was literally a day I was at church and said, I'm not even going to answer that question. I'm not even going to contemplate because that just hurts my head. I'm just going to accept the fact that I believe there's a God based on experiences that I've had
Mhm.
and leave the rest up to faith because that's what it is. It's about faith, and that's kind of what is happening here now. Because like with
Mhm.
and with B15 played by Wumi
Mhm.
Masako, like they're like we can't take away people's free will, which is what I think
Yes.
ultimately the last half of episode 6 is about
Mhm.
who has the right to determine these what is a nexus event, if what is it catastrophic, who has the right to determine the will of all of these people, because when they stop the nexus events, they're taking away the free will of all the people that would have existed going forward.
Mhm.
And then like they took away the variants free the other variants that were working in the TVA, their free will was taken away, their memories were erased, their whole lives and past gone. And they're
Mhm.
like talking, you can't do that to people because like even as Christians we talk about when God created us, we have free will, we have a choice to choose to do whatever, and then like we gotta
Right.
do consequences or whatever. And it's kind of the same thing where they're like, and that's what kind of where Loki is. And this is kind of what I didn't like. Where I tweeted, I said I felt like we were bamboozled. All of that character development that he had, where he's learning about respecting people and empathy and sympathy. We're seeing that happen in real time where he's with Sylvie. And he's like, Sylvie, you can't kill. You have to. Okay, let's stop. Pause. Think. If you kill this man, calamity will befall on the entire universe. And she's like saying, well, I want my revenge is about free will. And he's like, but you killing him, like you're taking away other people's free will because you're making a determination of what will happen for all these billions of people because of
Mhm.
your one action and for your one will. And like I understood where she was coming from, but she wasn't taking the time to listen to him. But then the thing is what happened because of that? the scene that happens afterwards, we see that he's gonna have so much guilt. You know, like he's been saying, I've been burdened with glorious purpose. He's
Hmm.
gonna be burdened with so much guilt about
Literally
it.
gold. Like now he definitely burdened with something.
And I'm like, and I don't like that because like then everything that we've seen Loki go through is gonna be, I think to me, is gonna be damaged because he has all of this guilt on his shoulders. Like he's gonna be thinking, oh, but if I had stopped Sylvie before, if I hadn't befriended Sylvie, if you know what I mean? And I'm just gonna like,
Hmm.
can this man catch a break? Like,
No, because I really did want him to have. I was towards the end. I'm like, okay, so we're not going to get a happy ending. Can I get a content ending and then we go into the multiverse?
no,
No,
no.
it's just sadness
And
alone.
he's gonna have
Sad.
so much to deal with because like now we're seeing that Mobius and B-15, the other his allies, they don't even remember him because they're like, where are you from? And I'm like, good lord, so now he's stuck in a place where these people have no idea who he is. So again, he's going to be alone,
Yeah.
like not physically, but just like mentally, he's gonna be surrounded by people who don't understand him. And I'm like, he's gonna have to go through this again.
Well,
Like he
so outside, so as I care for Loki, like all things, like I wanted a good ending for him. Very concerned, very sad for him, want to give him a hug because Mans is alone, alone, no
hmm,
one around. So I do hope that he uses that silver tongue to like get by and say, yes, I am an analyst. Never mind, I got my reports wrong. And he just gets by, gets a temp pad and gets his butt to Doctor Strange. That is what I'm hoping happens because I would like for Loki to end up with Doctor Strange because I think that would be a great place
this
for him
is
to
how
be.
will he find Doctor Strange though?
I mean, he's met Doctor Strange before.
No, I mean like how will he find him? Like I mean just in
I
this
mean,
instance.
Loki is technically a wizard, or he has a way with magic in the
And
sense
that's
of
another thing.
Asgard.
We didn't see much of his magic powers in
But I
this
kind
film.
of liked it because it challenged him this time.
It did, but I would have still liked to see because and like as I said, he's like if you're gonna call him the god of mischief, at least make him mischievous.
Yeah, but so few things like to add to all of that. Back to like what I was saying, he is basically like he's alone and he's like left without limited resources, but he does know how to enchant now.
Yes.
So I do like how season 2 is set up to open where it's like it's going to be very interesting. Did Loki figure out a way to charm his way for survival and not be caught by the TVA and pruned again, or like whatever, like how did he survive and what are his next steps? Because after this, like the next season should come out right before the Multiverse of Madness, which is the Doctor Strange film, I believe. So like that's why I think it would be perfect for Loki to connect with Doctor
Yeah.
Strange and have those connections there. Um and then going into like the other things, like I said, aside from like, so as a fan of the show, I think it was excellent writing and an excellent ending because it sets up for a great, like, challenging opening for next season because we really don't know where does Loki go from here. Like,
Mhm.
what is going to happen? We all are Loki in the sense of like we all know and are burdened with what everything that happened, but nobody else knows. And I don't think he's gonna go back and go through it all again. Maybe he'll try. He can't enchant Mobius in the TVA, so he has no way of like waking Mobius up unless he gets him like outside of it. But so like it's going to be an interesting to see like what does it open up with? Will he still be at the TVA? Will he just be biding his time there to come up with the plan? And will he go look for help? Like
I'm hoping that he'll stick around with B-15 and Mobius, and then also
mhm.
we have to figure out where Ravonna went because like
Yeah,
she disappeared and
she
she's like
went in search of free will.
gonna look in
So
free will. I'm like,
whatever that looks like. But I just wanted to add to what else you had said about like so on the religion aspect and like Loki's development. So I do agree, like a lot of this show does kind of challenge you to think of like free will in the sense of like are any of us truly free? Like do we like if is time already preordained to know that I will like touch my face with my right hand down to the minute of like what I will do with the next step or like with my next breath? Or do we choose to like try to just go down time blindly? And I think like and there's multiple ways we can have this discussion, and this is not the time because I know this is going to be a long episode already. But I did really like that Loki stopped, and like it showed a sign of growth to me
Yeah.
in that moment with Sylvie, because he, yes, toppling the TVA was his top priority, and he wanted the throne, he wanted the responsibility, but recognizing that killing he who remains, we'll use that title, or like Nathaniel, killing him in that moment would not be the best solution that they could do, like right then and there. Like killing him instantly was not the best course of action. He recognized that they should talk, they should work something out, or like they should at least take a minute to think before acting so rashly, because her whole thing is just like, it's my revenge. I want my revenge. And him saying his whole thing of like, we're the same person. Why aren't we seeing this the same? And he's like, because I can't be trusted and you can't trust. And like, but I also think it's because, and like, because she can't trust, she really feels like she can't trust him. And I love how Jonathan Major's character just is playing at, like, using them towards one another in a
Mhm.
way that like he ultimately gets what he wants.
Well, yeah.
He gets out of the job that he's exhausted from doing. And he's just like, like, I'll get into like his acting because I think that's my last pro, like, because I have other things, but I think we can start summing it up. But it's just very touching when Loki is like, he recognizes that he has the ability to change, and he's changing, and he wants to change for good. But Sylvie is so focused on her goal. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter that somebody worse than him will come in. And it's like he said, like, y'all thought I'm the devil. You don't know what the devil is. And it's just like, dang, that's a really great line. Because
Yeah, but no, but it's true, and this and it kind of ties into like the butterfly effect. So like we're talking about the timelines
mm-hmm,
and all of this, but the butterfly effect is like the like basically is like if a butterfly flaps its wings in Amazon or something, it can create a ripple effect
right.
going forward and like cause a hurricane in another country. And it's the same thing. That's what Loki was talking about, and same thing Nathaniel was talking about. He's like, this one action may see you're just for you, you're thinking of your revenge, but you're not thinking of the possible outcome and the consequences of this revenge. And then we saw it literally, we saw the butterfly effect take place because like as soon as she stabbed him, like the
Mm-hmm.
all the timeline start to branch and it was like this massive web. And it's just like with Nathaniel, he's like he that one was tired and he was
Yes.
like, I'm leaving. He's like, I want to leave. I thought I was gonna get one option, but I got two. And we don't
Yep.
know how this, and even he was like, I don't know how it's going on because I only saw right up to this moment.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we're talking about free will, but the thing is when you're talking about free will, like you talk about destiny, which is another theme for the of the show, is like destiny is like we say like every action that we do, again, butterfly effect,
Mm-hmm.
will change the course of our lives. So, like for instance, us doing this recording, who knows what this might lead to? Maybe an opportunity with Marvel. You never know. But the thing is like every action we does has an unforeseen circumstance because we can't.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what it's gonna lead to, and it's the same thing. But like Loki taking a minute to just be like, I can't dictate the future, but I
Mm-hmm.
can consider the possibilities,
Yeah.
right? And that's important. And I think that's something. This is the first time, honestly, we have seen this in the MCU because when you think about the other films and even WandaVision, we don't get that. We don't get
Mm-hmm.
characters actually thinking about the consequences of their actions. Like Wanda, all she
Yeah.
cared about was maintaining her family unit. She just wanted to be happy with Vision and their two kids, and she didn't think about the consequences to the townspeople that she was mentally enslaving. She wasn't thinking about the consequences to the people who had to be watching. I'm like afraid, like if she keeps expanding, is she gonna wipe out the world? Which is the
Mm-hmm.
potential for what was gonna happen. Like she had the potential to wipe out the world with what she was doing. And Captain America, I would say we've never really seen him actually consider the consequence. He's like, I'm gonna be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does that look like? We Black Panther. You had Killmonger was like, I want to do this. I want liberation. this is liberation to you. What is the consequences of your actions as your
Liberation by any means necessary
exactly? What is
is not liberation for everyone.
exactly
Right.
not when you're going about it with violence and you're doing it with full autonomy without consulting anyone. I'm like, okay, you want to
Mm-hmm.
liberate everyone? Okay, have you considered world events? Have you considered politics? Like, okay, what action works for one country isn't going to work for another country. So it's the same thing, which is what Nakia was talking about. Nakia was like, yeah, we got to wear pros and cons with every situation, right? And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
was saying. So like, I think this is the first time we've actually seen characters apart from the key, and it was apart from Black Panther, where we actually see them saying, "Pause. Let's think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out what's gonna happen." Because even if you look at Endgame, they came up with a plan, but they didn't actually really think about the end game, the
I
actual.
mean, shoot, ask Black Widow about considering consequences. I'm still upset because, like, I keep trying to think of an excuse to bring her back, but
Did
it's
not
not
feel like.
working. But anyways, no, I agree. This is probably the first time, and for it to one of the first times to see like a main character do it, and like for it to be Loki of all people to choose, you know. And I think part of it, some people could say like, did he do it because he did not want the burden? Did he not want? I don't think it's that. I think he realizes that like the responsibility of dictating and free will and time for the entire multiverse and time stream is massive, and taking away the person who has been capable of doing it up to said point, it didn't make sense, and he needed to and he's grown, and I think it's just it's a true sign of his growth for him to make that decision to say like, no, this wasn't right.
Yeah,
This is not how we should have done it. We should have found another way. Because even if they didn't kill
exactly.
him, they could have left him alive and been like, okay,
Trap
if you
him, imprison him, try to find out a solution. Because the
imprison
thing is,
him
okay,
and restructure and imprison him and find a better way to do it than him.
yeah,
But
because the thing is, look, it was only that he was thinking of consequences that his first reaction wasn't going to chaos because that was his other thing. Like his
right,
like, I want chaos and confusion. Like when he could get his way, that was always his fallback plan. But this time, this is when we are seeing him be like being logical and thinking about other people and like
hmm
chaos is not the objective. Order is. So I think it's interesting to have him be
order with free will, I
or
would say.
and that's the thing. You can have order with free will because like anarchy is where you're like no order and no okay. Then if people somebody like the purge films, if without order you're gonna have anarchy. Without anarchy you can have the purge films.
It's a very difficult balance because it's like Loki, Sylvie on one hand is basically her belief is like I was born the goddess of mischief, and the I believe the multiverse wants to break free, and that's why I was born to break free of it. And like there could be some truth in that. But is there a way that the multiverse can exist without it disrupting all the timelines into going into utter chaos? And I think that's something this next phase is really going to have to explore, because
They're
that's
gonna have to do it very carefully though.
I mean, we're going to see what happened, because as we know with the ending, we don't know we can assume it's Kang that came in. I feel like it's a pretty good indication that it's
Because
Kang.
remember in the TV, remember like the statue he sees is the statue of Kang the Conqueror, which is the one with he's wearing the suit with like the
Well, no,
armor.
the one that Loki sees in the final shot, it's just the guy. It's not him in the helmet
But he's
in the
wearing
whole
the
thing.
suit. But if you
Oh,
look at
he
like
has a suit on?
he's
Oh,
wearing the
okay.
suit.
Well, then it's Kang with
Yeah.
confirmation. It definitely was Kang. So, like,
Yeah.
well, yeah. And I just, last point, last pro for me, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors acted his butt off. And I just want to know, is it too late to give him a supporting actor nomination for like an Emmy for
Unfortunately,
this?
yes.
Damn.
But
Cuz
no,
I mean, it
that has
was
to go to Carl Lumley first because he did an amazing job in
it's a
Phantom.
lovely, and it's like he did the perfect amount of what I needed for manic and exhausted, and like you could tell that he was a man who truly who had good intentions at one point, then went possibly insane from the burden of the work that he did, and then eventually he found that sanity again, but he was also just very exhausted from it all. But it's like this manic man who just like is like, I'm tired, but I've been doing all this work and y'all think I'm the devil, so you might as well kill me. And he's like, and if worst case scenario, if you kill me and then someone else comes over here, we'll just start all over again and I'll be
Yeah, because
right
he's
back
like,
where I
I'm gonna, yeah,
started.
yeah, because he's like, I'm gonna come back anyway.
And his story is like
It's-
one I've seen in like other characters when it comes to anime, like the when you're stuck in a loop of like your destiny is literally going to repeat itself, because truthfully he exists out of time because he traveled, we assume it's the quantum realm that they're existing in. We'll see if that's true or not, but it's the fact that he knows in the 31st century, we're to assume that like that point in time is always happening. It's always
yeah.
reliving and always happening. So it's always going to happen. There's nothing to stop it. Even if he goes back in time and stops himself from discovering the multiverse, somebody else just would have done it, or one of his other variants would have done it. So he's
Mhm.
always going to make this discovery. The multiverse will always be discovered. He'll always figure out technology to connect them, and then there will always be chaos for the war to happen, because maybe Kang's thing will be that y'all need to change.
I think that's it, right? Because like that's a theme in like not only MCU but in a lot of films where it's like ultimately it's the actions of humans that determine the outcome of everything. Like
Hmm.
it's all about change and it's about learning. So like you mentioned, like Sylvie didn't change, but Loki did. So
Yeah.
maybe his variation is the thing that's gonna cause the change, the cause the timeline to change. And that would be, I think that'd be pretty fantastic, where like everything doesn't end up in chaos, everything doesn't end up in gloom. And if it happens because of somebody like Loki, that would thing. But then ultimately, but that they can only go forward as far as they can, because like Kang um is eons old. Like he is
Yeah.
like thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And I just think it's brilliant that they cast Jonathan Majors, that they cast a black man, a black person for that role, because I'm like, yes, black don't crack. Because when he said I'm older than I look, I'm like, yes, you are. I'm like, that's the
Someone made the joke and they said, so is y'all telling me the TVA is a black owned business?
yes,
And I just like,
yes it is.
hilarious. Yes, yes, it is. In the MCU, the TVA is a black owned business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but no, I'm so excited to see. So I guess to wrap up, do you have, let's say, top predictions you might have for next season?
I think my prediction is that Loki, Mobius, and B-15 team up,
Hmm.
and that Ravonna comes back and she comes back with some kind of clue on how to conquer Kang.
Okay.
Because he is going to be the big bad going forward. He is going to
Hmm.
be, we had Thanos, and he's going to be the big bad
He
now.
bigger than
And
Thanos, and that's terrifying.
exactly. So I think Ravonna is gonna come back with a key, and so we're gonna have that. I need them to be a team, because I need Loki to be in a team with people that trust him
Hmm.
and that he trusts, and that they believe in him, because he hasn't really had anyone really believe in him either.
Yeah.
And I that's my hope, and that's what I want for this show and for him. And 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 I think, and I also want them to turn the lights up. I'm so serious. People think I'm not being petty when I say this. I need them to
No.
stop filming. It's so dark. You can't see, and it's a big thing for me visually, because I'm a very visual person. So like I like to be able to see what's going on, and it's a shame when you have all of this time putting for VFX and you can't see and the set
Hmm.
design. But also you have to consider people who have like visual impairments and may not be able
Yeah.
to see things properly. Like this is a consideration. I hope they do season two better visually, thematically, and I just want better for Loki. I think he's shown. I think he's gotten a proper redemption arc, and sometimes it's hard. We don't get proper redemption arcs all the time. I think he has a really good one, and I need them to continue that and not have the character regress. So please
Hmm.
do better by Loki in season two, please.
Yeah. I would say yes on the team up happening, especially with Mobius and B-15.
Hmm.
Ravonna, I would like to see her come back and, be willing to team up with them. Um, but like we'll see what that looks like. For other predictions, yeah, I just feel like I really do wonder if Loki is going to, talk his way into being like, yep, I am an analyst. I work here, and just like get by like that. in order to like, survive until he can come up with a plan to, free Mobius again. But it's kind of like, what does that look like? Like, because I think Loki truly understands that he obviously is no match for Kang, and
Hmm.
he knows when Loki knows when he's been met when it comes to like a match. While he is arrogant, I think he like the battle that like, and I say battle, the little fight that they had with trying to take out Nathaniel earlier, that just didn't go nowhere. And he's just like, wow, so someone just as smart and as powerful as him, if not but evil, is going to come here. We'll see what happens. So, and the thing is, it sounds like Kang wants the multiverse to thrive. So,
Yeah, because they
because
said
they,
Kang thrives off of chaos, doesn't it?
right, and they literally, because they said like, so does he just want us to let it keep branching?
Hmm.
So it's like, so Kang want, so I'm like, okay, so like, well, we see what the multiverse interacting with one another looks like, and like I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see, but I would like for Loki, like towards the end of season 2, I would like for there to be some connection or like teaser as for Loki going to find Doctor Strange, or because like I just don't think Loki is going to go to anyone else unless it's Thor. But I think he recognizes he needs somebody who is very powerful in the arts of time and space. And
Yeah.
that
And
naturally would be Doctor Strange.
yeah, and Thor is extremely smart. So
He is, but like, I question. He knows he can't go back to his timeline. That's the thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, he can't go back to his timeline after he died to that point because he doesn't exist there anymore. So there is a duplicate. But anyways, now we're getting into time travel
a
theory.
thought just occurred to me. Kate Blanchett's character.
Hmm.
She's dead dead?
I don't know.
I don't think she is.
Mm,
Because remember, one thing about these things, unless we see them die on screen, they're not really dead.
I don't think she did.
That's
Then
my theory.
I think she'll be back for season 2.
I think she'll be back because we need. I think because because even if the one that we know is dead, like there has to be a variant of her, and I think we need someone as powerful like her to deal with Kang because and I think and her character fits into this world of Loki, right? The way how they've written the story because they're using a more magic.
But Hella,
Hela, I cannot remember her name for the
yeah,
life.
Hella. I mean, we saw Ragnarok get wiped out completely, so they could leave it open that she still existed. But Hela would not be the ally that Loki needs.
And
I
not
think
necessarily a full ally, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of situation.
I don't think so. I don't think that's. I don't. I think Loki knows well enough not to try to be allies because he even knew like, nope, can't even negotiate being a follower with you.
It's true.
It's like
It's true.
she will kill him. She doesn't care that that's her little adopted brother. It don't matter.
Hmm.
Um, but no, Hela would definitely. I think Hela would have been something against Thanos. But in the terms of Kang,
That's what we
we
should
say,
have.
yeah, I don't think she matches up much. Like she's probably a threat, but she's not much of a threat. So that's why I go with Doctor Strange because he actually has some mastery. He has a mastery over time.
Yeah.
Like can see like like we saw a little bit in like the films that he's been in so far. So it's like I can't think of anybody else that Loki like would think of to go to unless it's a character we have not seen before.
Hmm.
But we shall see. Maybe I mean he'll if he can get his hands on a temp pad, anything's possible. He can travel to any multiverse and find someone else. So to your point, he could go find a Hela that would be friendly.
Yep. There are variations. So
We shall see. But oof, I do think Sylvie is either imprisoned or dead.
we only saw her stab. We only saw her stab, and we didn't see what happened after she stabbed him.
If
So
Kang showed up there on that spot, if she didn't grab that temp pad and leave, so okay, she's dead, imprisoned, or she's off somewhere in the multiverse.
mhm.
Because if she didn't grab, she's a fool if she didn't grab that temp pad and leave. If she
Yeah.
waited for someone to show up, so I'm hoping that she definitely left. But
Well, if she did left and if she survived, and if there and with season 2 to bring her back, then that would also be interesting conundrum for Loki, because then he's gonna have to deal with the consequences of what she did, and that's gonna create more strife between them, because then that's picking up from
Yeah,
he would have been like, "You see what I told you." So that would be interesting if she does come back. Yeah,
it will be.
because with the multiverses branching off, there are like kind like he said, like Nathaniel said, they're going to eventually loop back into each other. So like she goes on, I think she's gonna come right back to where she started.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think that's what one thing we can definitely say for sure. It's going to
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yep.
But with that, I guess we can tell the people where they can find us.
Mm-hmm. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. You can find my YouTube channel under my name, Carolyn Hines, and on my other podcast, Beyond the Romance, as well as Carolyn Talks, here on the But Why the Podcast community, as well as other podcast streaming platforms. And you can find my writing again, but why the podcast.com. I feel like I'm repeating myself. And if you go to my artwork page, which is in the link tree link in my Twitter and my Instagram bio, you'll find my writing there as well, and interviews that I've done for the African American Film Critics Association. And for you, Missy, where can everyone find you?
Y'all can find me on, Twitter and Instagram at Nisha Plays. That's NEYSHAPLAYS. And I went ahead and I made myself a little portfolio site. So if y'all go to one of those handles, you can click on the link in my bio and y'all can check it out. But yeah, that's it. That's where y'all can find us. Oh, and just let us know what y'all thoughts were on all of this things with this season, because it was wild. Miss Minute scares me very much. Like, hey y'all,
There you
just
go.
popping up out of nowhere. But I would love to hear other people's thoughts. So definitely hit us up on our show page and on our personal handles with your reactions.
Yes.
But with that, I think that's it. So y'all be well.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.